So I'm like, man, I knew it wasn't gonna be easy taking on a challenge. You see this hose is
perfect.
Welcome to the Auto Lust YouTube channel. If you're new here, welcome. If you're already an Auto Lust family member, thank you. And what's swinging, gang? So this is the most highly anticipated channel update that I can do. As you can see who we're working on. Sasha is right there in all her glory. We're in Florida, so it's literally raining right now. You know, like it just started back raining super hard. The parking lot is flooded right there, so I might have to run back into the shop and come back out when it's done raining, because man, it's starting to rain hard. And yeah, it definitely started to rain hard, and it kept raining for the next few days.
3 days later.
We almost got her back right, fam. I mean, if you guys remember, before all of this crazy stuff happened, for like out of the blue, she was running like this. So now she could actually run like that now, but it's still a couple of little more, you know, a little bit more quirks and kinks I want to work out of her, and I'm gonna show you what those are, and I'm gonna show you the crazy maze I went through getting her back to this pretty much the way she runs now, you know. And oh man, it's crazy. And believe me, I'm gonna show you guys. So let me get right into showing you exactly what happened with this car. And you won't believe the series of unfortunate events that happened back to back. I mean, you couldn't make this up in a movie script. So most of you guys know that I just installed a body domain control module on this car, which ran me about $400 plus $200 to code it, program it, initialize it, whatever you want to call it. You know, just to fast forward from that, it worked, but something wasn't done properly. So I'm going to end up having to take it to the dealership anyways and have them reinitialize it and reprogram it, because something isn't reading. One of the modules isn't initialized and it keeps saying it's not reading or whatever, and everything is working fine, but who knows what type of problem it's causing behind the scenes. So that's done, but this is where it gets crazy. The body domain control, or BDC, is located right there in the footwell. So once that was replaced, everything ran great, you know, like the car idled good and stuff like that. And then the next day she started running just as bad as she did before I installed the BDC. Actually, she was running way worse than she was prior to me installing the new BDC, to the point where everything would go black and she would just cut off in the middle of driving and all type of stuff. And she did it 4 or 5 times, so I was like wigging out. So I'm like, what the hell is going on? You know, I was to the point where, let me flip this camera around. I was to the point where I was looking for listings of my vehicle, you know, just to take a loss on selling there, because so many of my systems are standalone controlled now. It's not controlled by the DME. So it's even harder to find out problems. But the car was just running extremely bad. So I'm like, I'm gonna sell it. I'm tired of this car. And you know what I did? You know, I said, look, and I actually prayed about it. I said, you know, God, you gave me this car. You know, you allowed me to have this car. You allowed me to do the mods to this car. If you don't want me to have this car, take it away. You know, take it away. But if you want me to keep this car, help me fix it. Because I was that, you know, distraught about the problems with this car, because there's so much money invested in this car. And I was just thinking about it all going down the drain. So that's what I did at the shop, you know. And I checked everything on this car back to forth, you know, up top to bottom, front to back, and everything before, you know, grounds and everything, and none of that stuff was a problem. And all of a sudden, as soon as I did my prayer, you know, I kid you not, like 2 seconds later, you know, maybe 5 seconds later, you know, check the grounds again popped in my head. And I'm like, I already did that. Why am I checking the ground? So I said, you know what? It didn't pop in my head for anything. I know exactly who told me. My prayer was answered that quickly. So I went and checked all the grounds again. And my engine ground, you couldn't tell it was loose. But if you yank on it a little, it's loose, like up to down wise, not front, you know, side to side. If you tug it side to side, it's gonna be tight. But if you try to rock it up and down, it's gonna flex a little bit. And that ground, you know, with the engine vibrating, because you guys know this thing runs like a choppy Camaro cam car, that the engine, you know, it's not a smooth idling engine for so many mods on it. So that little engine vibration and stuff, and banging on the gas, popping through built transmission shift gears and stuff like that, it just kept loosening and loosening and loosening that wire, you know. And I tightened that down, and boom, all of the problems were fixed. You know, I'm like, and I'm gonna show you exactly which wire it is. A lot of F86 and F85 engine bays don't look like this one. Mine, like I said, is extremely modified, but the ground I'm referring to is right here. You could actually see the nut right there. Let me try to focus the camera on it. Yeah, you could actually see the nut right there, and it's a black ground wire that runs back to the DME, and that's the engine's ground. You know, and it was loose, topped up, you know, shaking it up and down, but not side to side. Last time I checked it, I think I just moved it side to side, and it was pretty tight. But it was just the tension on the boat itself, not the connection between the block and the actual ground. So guys, check your grounds, man. But that made the car run a lot better once I got that done. You know, so a couple weeks later, well, a couple days later, you know, I start hearing, well, I always heard the exhaust leak. This car has a very, very, very bad exhaust leaks. It's either from the turbo to the header, or from the header, from the turbo to the header, or from the turbo to the downpipe. But I bought new gaskets for everything, so I'm going to replace all of those. We're going to do a smoke test first, just to make sure it's not from the header to the cylinder head, which would need new header gaskets then, which I don't think that's the problem, because when the engine was built and forged, those were brand new, and it's only about 6,000 miles on the engine since it was built. So I knew that I had that problem. So as I'm going to the shop to change the header gasket, I get a low fuel code, and I'm like, why am I getting low fuel pressure codes? You know, something's not right with this. And the code I got was this code here. You know, so that code usually pertains to this fuel sensor here. You know, this is my low pressure fuel sensor. Most low pressure fuel sensors on the V8s are in the wheel arch back in this area somewhere, but I have a totally, completely custom fuel system all the way to the high pressure pumps. As you can see, this is 8 AN line, and then it splits into 6 AN and goes directly, let me see if I can get it. Yeah, you can see it there. It goes directly to my high pressure pumps. You see, that's a custom connection that we had made. So I mean, it's direct, and it goes all the way and connects it, you know, directly to my low pressure pumps. So no fuel line, low pressure or high pressure, is from the factory. We have all larger diameter, big boy fuel line to make monstrous amounts of power, because that's the main problem with these cars, is fueling. You know, because BMW decided to go direct injection instead of port injection, so we just can't put 2,000 cc injectors in here and say, ooh, we got all the power. You know, it don't work like that with these high pressure engines. Yeah, so I changed the sensor out, and it didn't do anything. You know, so what I did was I had to go into the back. Let me close this. What I did was I opened up the driver's side part of the tank first, which when you pop this seat off, it's 2 access doors. This is my true pump side here, and that is my transfer station, which this pump transfer fuel over to that transfer station, and this transfer station sends the fuel up to the front of the engine for the high pressure pumps to receive, you know. But both sides have their own separate leveling sensor and stuff like that, so there's electronics on both sides. This side has the EKP and a leveling sensor, and that side just have a leveling sensor. The driver's side just has the leveling sensor plug. So when I popped the tower open, you know, it was nothing wrong. The only thing I noticed is when I pulled the pump up, it was a piece of nitrile glove, because I wear gloves when I go in the tank because you can get fuel burns and they hurt, I promise you, and they make your hands look like you're 70 years old. Mine probably already looked like that, but yeah, and it was stuck up in the pickup that sends fluid back to this side of the tank. You know, so I'm like, okay, maybe that was the low pressure problem. So I pulled the little piece of glove out, because the glove popped like months ago when I was doing work in the tank, and I thought that I got, it only popped into one, it was one piece, but I guess a piece ripped off as I pulled it out, and it floated its way over to that side of the tank, you know, with time and running around and stuff. But that wasn't the problem, because when I pulled that piece of glove out, put the transfer station back in, and buttoned everything back up, I still had low fuel pressure. So the low pressure fuel sensor didn't do it. Pulling that piece of rubber glove out of the transfer station pickup to transfer over to this side didn't work. So I'm like, something's going on. Now, this is the most complicated fuel pump in BMW history, and that's because it's the first in the world to ever be done on a BMW SUV. And we have a totally different fuel pump than the cars, and this SUV has a totally different fuel pump than any of the other SUVs. So my pump had to be custom made by Precision Raceworks. I'm the first one in the world with this pump. So, and it's a Hellcat pump, but the way it's built is totally different when it's in conjunction with my factory pump. So I hate pulling this access cover out because it's so much going on. It looks like a, you know, some data software center when you open their, you know, their computers up and something, you know. I just hate going in there. So, but I had to. I popped the access cover off and, you know, popped the top off of the pump, and I pulled the pump over, because the access door hole is only about like 4 inches in diameter, or maybe a little bigger. So I pulled it over, and I saw a hole split right down. You see this hose is split right there. And I'm like, this has to be the problem. And it was on the Hellcat pump side. So when the Hellcat pump is pumping fuel, it's spitting out, and it's causing suction from my main pump and pulling that back through that. So it's back feeding back through that hole. You know, and the more I get on throttle, the more it pulls both pumps back through that hole. And no, before I get anybody who says that's the wrong hose or anything else, let me explain to you why that's the right hose and why what happened is my fault. So this is the Autolust school for people who don't know much and want to learn, or for keyboard warriors that jump in the comment section without learning first. So that is the correct hose. It's a Vitten hose, FKM, purely inside and out. It's solid, and it's very expensive, and it's meant to be submerged. The only thing about that hose is it was at a tight 90 degree, you know, and if you got a hose that's about 3 inches long at a tight 90 degree that's going directly from the Hellcat pump to a Y connection, you know, all of that full PSI of that Hellcat pump, when it kicks on, is going to want to straighten that hose out. And at 90 degrees, the tight points are at the bottom connection and at the top of the top connection, where fuel is trying to straighten the hose out. So even though my hose is built for 400 PSI, you could just imagine the PSI that was built up in that hose before it exploded like that. So what I did was I took that hose out, and I bought a custom smooth 90 stainless steel, the same exact inner diameter as the hose, so it's not any fuel restriction. And I use these same fittings throughout my entire in-tank fuel system. I just have a lot of them, so I use one of them and put a little 2-inch section between the fitting and the Hellcat pump, and a 2-inch section of hose between the fitting and the 90, the smooth 90 and the Y fitting. So that way, once the Hellcat pump kicks on, it can't blow anything out because it's going through a small, straight, smooth section on both ends, and most of the pressure is going through that stainless steel smooth 90. So I mean, if it blow a hole in the smooth 90, that thing was like 10,000 psi or something higher than that to blow a hole in that. So we shouldn't have any problems there unless something slips off from the pressure. But I put better fuel clamps from the same company. What are they called? I forgot the name of the company where I bought the hose from, but I'll put the name right here and a link in the description for where I bought the hose from. Yeah, and once I switch that out, the car runs perfectly fine. So you can see right here my fuel pressure regulator. Well, the factory fuel, the ECU still controls my fuel pressure as well, but I can pretty much override it by using this fuel pressure regulator, not by much. Because my whole deal with doing the fuel system was to get a higher volume of flow, not really up the low pressure. The pressure really doesn't need to be boosted. It just needs to flow better. So yeah, let me show you what it went from. It went from like the low 30s, high 30s to this. So I'll show you the new fuel pressure now. She definitely sounds good. So that's the correct fuel pressure now. And you can actually hear the exhaust leak if you listen for it. That exhaust leak sounds horrible. Exhaust leak that big, who knows, it might be both sides, both turbos are leaking exhaust. When you have an exhaust leak, you're not getting the right air fuel ratio, the O2 sensors aren't doing their job, you know, and a bunch of other stuff, you know. So it could be multiple different reasons on how having an exhaust leak as big as mine will change the way the car runs. Under throttle, she runs perfectly fine. I don't dig in her hard because of the exhaust leak, of course, but when I do get on throttle, you know, to pull out and drive and stuff like that, get her to the shop and stuff like that, she drives perfectly fine. I mean, the exhaust leak is louder. I mean, it's almost as loud as it is back there, up there, which it sounds like, I mean, it's horrible, you know, but those will get changed very, very soon. I'm thinking of changing those next week, because it's not an easy job, you know, to pull the turbos out and put them back in. You know, I hate doing it. I've done it before, and I don't really like doing it, but it has to be done. Yeah, but for all you guys that wanted a update on Sasha, Sasha is getting there. You know, she's almost there, and I'm so happy that she's almost to where she's supposed to be in reference to, you know, the way she's supposed to run and stuff like that. So I'm very happy about that, and it's just a couple of things that I have to do to get her all the way in order to where she's supposed to be, and then I can go ahead and tune the car, because I was gonna wait until I do some other mods to tune the car, but I think if I tune the car now, I can get whatever record is out there on the table, you know. So I'm just gonna tune the car now once I get her back running the correct way, and see what she does at the track for numbers wise, and then I can go ahead and get deep into it, you know, deep into world record territory once, you know, I at least scratch the you know, dig the surface out. Yeah, but I appreciate you guys rocking with me. You know, Sasha has been a crazy merry-go-round since I started this build, you know, but first and foremost, man, I want to give God all the glory, you know, because without him and his grace and his mercy, I wouldn't be this far with this project. So, man, I appreciate you guys, man. Like, share, and subscribe, and Auto Lust out.